Words of Sri Aurobindo. As to permanence, you cannot expect permanence of the initial spiritual experiences from the beginning. Only a few have that, and even for them, the high intensity is not always there. For most, the experience comes and then draws back behind the veil, waiting for the human part to be prepared and made ready to bear and hold fast its increase and then its permanence. But to doubt it on that account would be irrational in the extreme. One does not doubt the existence of air because a strong wind is not always blowing, or of sunlight because night intervenes between dawn and dusk. The difficulty lies in the normal human consciousness to which spiritual experience comes as something abnormal and is in fact supernormal. This weak, limited normality finds it difficult at first even to get any touch of that greater and intenser supernormal experience, or it gets it diluted into its own duller stuff of mental or vital experience. And when the spiritual does come in its own overwhelming power, very often it cannot bear, or if it bears, cannot hold and keep it. Still, once a decisive breach has been made in the walls built by the mind against the infinite, the breach widens, sometimes slowly, sometimes swiftly, until there is no wall any longer, and there is the permanence. But the decisive experience cannot be brought. The permanence of a new state of consciousness in which they will be normal cannot be secured if the mind is always interposing its own reservations, prejudgments, ignorant formulas, or if it insists on arriving at the divine certitude as it would at the quite relative truth of a mental conclusion by reasoning, doubt, inquiry, and all the other paraphernalia of ignorance, feeling and fumbling around after knowledge. These greater things can only be brought by the progressive opening of a consciousness quieted and turned steadily towards spiritual experience. If you ask why the divine has so disposed it on these highly inconvenient bases, it is a futile question. For this is nothing else than a psychological necessity imposed by the very nature of things. It is so because these experiences of the divine are not mental constructions, not vital movements. They are essential things, not things merely thought, but realities, not mentally felt, but felt in our very underlying substance and essence. No doubt the mind is always there and can intervene. It can and does have its own type of mentalizing about the divine, thoughts, beliefs, emotions, mental reflections of spiritual truth, even a kind of mental realization which repeats as well as it can some kind of figure of the higher truth. And all this is not without value, but it is not concrete, intimate, and intubatable. Mind by itself is incapable of ultimate certitude. Whatever it believes, it can doubt. Whatever it can affirm, it can deny. Whatever it gets hold of, it can and does let go. That, if you like, is its freedom, noble right, privilege. It may be all you can say in its praise, but by these methods of mind you cannot hope outside the reach of physical phenomena, and hardly even there to arrive at anything you can call an ultimate certitude. It is for the compelling reason that mentalizing or inquiring about the divine cannot, by its own right, bring the divine. If the consciousness is always busy with small mental movements, specially accompanied, as they usually are, by a host of vital movements, desires, prepossessions, and all else that vitiates human thinking, even apart from the native insufficiency of reason, what room can there be for a new order of knowledge, for fundamental experiences, or for those deep and tremendous upsurgings or descents of the spirit? It is indeed possible for the mind, in the midst of its activities, to be suddenly taken by surprise, overwhelmed, swept aside, while all is flooded with a sudden inrush of spiritual experience. But if afterwards it begins questioning, doubting, theorizing, surmising what these might be and whether it is true or not, what else can this spiritual power do but retire and wait for the bubbles of the mind to cease?